Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammadin. Welcome to another book list video. This book list is a kind of continuation of a reading list which I already made on Aristotle, the Aristotle reading list, or getting started with Aristotle. And I mentioned that the reason I made that video was because I had thought I had already made it, and I in fact told someone that I had made this video and they should watch it on my channel, and then I realized that I didn't have that video up, and that was in the context of a discussion of one of the books of Aristotle, which is the Anima, on the soul. And so then I decided I should do a video, a reading list on that text of Aristotle itself. And in fact, someone even posted a comment on another one of my videos on René Guénon continuing series, which I have going on his Reign of Quantity and the Signs of the Times, in which I mentioned the doctrine of the soul. I mentioned Aristotle somewhere in there and his book, the Anima, and then he asked me, why don't you make a video, a reading list video on this? So this is what I'm doing. So Aristotle's De Anima, in English it would be known as On the Soul. De Anima is the Latin title by which it is known. The works of Aristotle were all translated into Latin, and in the Middle Ages that's indeed how they were studied in the Latin West. And so for this reason, many of the works of Aristotle go by a Latin title. Of course, Aristotle was not a Roman. He was a Greek. He did not write in Latin. And the book in Greek is called, I think, and again, I don't know Greek, but I'm pretty sure it's Peripsuches. So this is a very, very important and influential work. You have to remember that many of the works of Aristotle, in fact, have to do with biology. What we would at least today call biology. He was very much interested in the study of living things. His father was a physician, and he had an abiding interest in life, living things. And so in this book, On the Soul, he is interested in looking at the principle of life. What is that principle of life in things? Now, of course, this is a subject which many modern people are not interested in. Many modern people say they don't believe in the soul. I think that when many modern people say this, what they really mean is that they reject any kind of a religious dogma regarding the soul or some other kinds of what they would deem to be primitive or unscientific beliefs about the soul. But I don't think that anyone, even the most rank materialist, would deny that they are alive, and that animals are alive, and that there is also a vegetable kingdom, or that plants are alive. And that's all that Aristotle means when he uses the term soul. Of course, in Greek, he uses the term psyche. Psyche, like the Latin word anima, goes back to the etymology, has to do with breathing and breath, and the English word soul, it's probably some sort of a Germanic root, may have something to do with movement. But this is what Aristotle is interested in this book, and it is also known in the literal meaning of the term as psychology, but has nothing in common with modern psychology, because the English word psychology, you notice it has a P, psychology, and a CH. That psych part, like we have the English word psyche, you don't pronounce the P, comes from the exact Greek word for soul, psyche. So originally psychology was the study of soul understood in this sense by Aristotle. And fundamentally for Aristotle, the principle of life, which we find in plants, human beings, and animals, is just a kind of perfection or completion. It is the form of the physical body. But really, if you want to understand these things, you have to go and study Aristotle's treatise on this. So I'm going to talk about a number of different translations, which I found useful, and some additional works, mainly commentaries, that help you to understand what Aristotle is trying to say in his De Anima, and that's usually how it's known in English. It's by the Latin title, go figure, for whatever reason. So I'll talk about some commentaries, and then I'll talk about the influence of the De Anima in later philosophy, particularly Islamic philosophy, and in all of these contexts, I will mention books which you can refer to. So if you want to read On the Soul by Aristotle, if you've got the complete works of Aristotle, so if you watched my other video, you know that the complete works of Aristotle comes in 2 big heavy volumes, and On the Soul is in volume 1. It's in volume 1, and it's translated by a guy named J.A. Smith. It's a relatively short book. So to give you an idea, of course, these are really thin pages, but in this translation, this standard edition translation by J.A. Smith, it begins on page 641 and ends on page 692. So it's just about this much. It's about 50 pages. It consists of 3 books. Book 1 consists of 5 chapters, Book 2 consists of 12, and Book 3 consists of 13 chapters. You should keep in mind that the chapter and book divisions were not necessarily done by Aristotle. They were probably the work of later editors, and they're usually and often they are not thematic. So this is a kind of standard edition of the works of Aristotle, but because of Aristotle being so important, there are many, many editions and translations of individual works of Aristotle. So when it comes to the De Anima, one of the most useful, but not the cheapest, not the least expensive, is Aristotle De Anima in the translation by Christopher Shields. And this is published by Oxford University Press. And it's about a 400-page book. So you might think, well, how is that? The De Anima is pretty small. Yes, it is. But there is a very detailed introduction, and there's considerable commentary by Shields. So to give you an idea, the intro and various notes on the text, they take up about 50 pages already. Then again, you've got the De Anima itself, which starts on page 1, goes to page 73. So again, not too much. And the rest of this is all very detailed and useful commentary in the light of modern research on Aristotle. This came out in 2016, so it's still a pretty recent book. Now, there are a number of other translations. If you don't know Greek, and I don't know Greek, unfortunately, so it's important to read maybe more. It's definitely important to read more than one translation. And my basis for compiling this list is just translations which I have found useful. You may agree, you may disagree, but I think that these are some of the best translations out there, which, if read together, can shed considerable light on the text. So there is a famous publisher of philosophy works called Ḥāqqirī, and Ḥāqqirī Publishers is bringing out brand new translations of Aristotle. It's a series called The New Ḥāqqirī Aristotle. C.D.C. Reeve is the translator. So this is C.D.C. Reeve's translation of Aristotle De Anima. Has a very good introduction also. It's a very nice, handy, crisp volume. The Ḥāqqirī books, even though they're paperback, they're sturdy. They're specifically designed for college classes, especially undergraduate classes. And there's a Ḥāqqirī for just about everything, except when Islamic philosophy. I think there's one, but a lot more work needs to be done in that area. Anyhow, so we've got Shields' translation, we've got C.D.C. Reeves, and then we have this one I actually just got. This came in 2 days ago. This is the translation of someone named Glenn Coughlin. And this is published by St. Augustine's Press in South Bend, Indiana. You may infer from the name, and you would be right, that this is a Catholic press, a Catholic publishing house. Glenn Coughlin did this translation for, I think he teaches at St. Thomas Aquinas College, which is a Catholic liberal arts college. I think it's in California. But this also has a very interesting introduction, and this has extensive appendices. There's 5 appendices which really end up being a commentary on the whole text, but this is a lot more brief. This is pretty inexpensive. I think this was about $15, $16, so not bad for books nowadays. The next translation which I would like to recommend is by someone named David Bolotin, or Bolotin. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, Bolotin. This is his translation. This is published by Mercer University Press. And David Bolotin is a retired tutor at St. John's College. At St. John's College, they're not called professors, they're called tutors at the Santa Fe, New Mexico campus. And this is a very, very careful translation with extremely useful footnotes, and I recommend it highly. And I have another translation. This is the last example I will give of a translation of De Anima, and then we'll move to other works. This is simply called Aristotle's On the Soul, and this is published by Green Lion Press. Green Lion Press is closely associated also with St. John's College. And this is the translation by Joe Sachs. Joe Sachs has translated many ancient Greek works, many works of Aristotle, including Aristotle's Physics and his Metaphysics. It might be said that Joe Sachs' translation is an acquired taste for some. People have various reactions. Many people think that his translations are weird or strange or awkward. But I found his translation to be quite interesting. It's a fascinating exercise. He makes the point that Aristotle's language, the Greek language which he uses, was actually the everyday speech of the time. And so he tries to reflect that in his own translation. And he has a beautiful introduction, about a 40-page introduction, which I enjoyed immensely. He has very brief introductions to each of the 3 books where he lists the key terms in Greek and his translations, and he justifies at length the choices he has made. He does the same in his other translations of Aristotle, especially the Metaphysics. So these 5 translations I have found to be quite useful. The Shields translation, Shields, CDC Reeve, Glenn Coughlin, David Bolotin, and Joe Sachs. So let's put aside our translations now. Even though Aristotle continues to be read, even though the De Anima continues to be read, modern philosophers have their own take on these kind of issues, and they generally deal with the kinds of issues that Aristotle deals with, particularly his understanding of perception in either epistemology or also in an area called philosophy of mind. It's very different, but if you want to have an understanding of the differences, then this is an excellent book called Philosophy of Mind by Edward Feser. And Feser is very much a fan, you could say, of Aristotle. He is a follower of Thomas Aquinas. We'll have things to say about Aquinas shortly. And so in his presentation of philosophy of mind, he often makes reference to Aristotelian doctrine, the Aristotelian doctrine or teaching on the soul. If you want to know about how the soul has been understood in Western thought, then this is an excellent book entitled A Brief History of the Soul by Stuart Goetz and Charles Taliaferro. It's a very easy read. I don't think this is a very profound book, but I'm just including it there because that's what I found when I went online to look for some sort of historical account of the soul in Western civilization. And when I did that, I found another book which is co-edited by Stuart Goetz and another person named Mark C. Baker, entitled The Soul Hypothesis, Investigations into the Existence of the Soul. This is published by Bloomsbury. So this is an edited volume. There are various chapters here which you might find interesting. So I'm just including that there for the sake of completeness. To give you a kind of contrast with the modern world. Yeah, so in terms of commentaries, Ronald Polanski has written a massive contemporary commentary. It's almost 600 pages if you include the index, 580 pages. So just over 500 pages of text commenting on every part of the De Anima line by line. So this is a great reference by Ronald Polanski. It's kind of an expensive book because it's published by Cambridge. In terms of the medieval commentators on Aristotle, for the Western world, Aquinas is extremely important. And so we have St. Thomas Aquinas' commentary on Aristotle's De Anima. This is published by Dumb Ox Books, and you can buy this online also through St. Augustine Press's website. Although their website is not very well organized, it looks like it was made with Windows 95 or XP or something. It's really ancient, and so sometimes the search doesn't work too well. But I have ordered from them, so you kind of have to just navigate through there. And this is also relatively inexpensive. This is a very interesting work to read. I should tell you, though, that it's double columns of text inside. It isn't just one page. And even though, again, it's a paperback, it's not fragile at all. It won't tear. The binding is really good. So I just want to say that within this commentary, Aquinas, of course, quotes the text of Aristotle. And the text of Aristotle here is not based on any of the translations I've talked about. So Aquinas read Aristotle not in the Greek, but in the Latin translation of a person named William of Moerbeke. And this is the English translation out of the Latin of William of Moerbeke, or Moerbeke, I'm not really sure how it's pronounced, in the Dumb Ox Press edition of the commentary on the De Anima by Aquinas. Now, I really think that the best commentary that I have come across so far on Aristotle's De Anima is actually by a medieval Muslim scholar named Ibn Rushd, who is known to the West as Averroes. It is in Arabic, but readers of English are very fortunate that there is an excellent English translation, and here it is. So this is Averroes' middle commentary on Aristotle's De Anima, edited and translated, the Arabic text edited and translated by Arthur Ivry. It's 2002. It's a dual language edition, so that if you know Arabic, the Arabic text is there side by side with the English. Averroes, or Ibn Rushd, wrote a number of commentaries on the entire Aristotelian corpus. Some of them are short. They're short commentaries, which are very, very sort of brief interpretations, really. And then there's what's called the middle commentaries, in Arabic talkhis, but in Arabic the word talkhis actually means a summary, and it's not really a summary. It's a commentary, but kind of paraphrase. And it's extremely useful, and I find this translation of the Arabic of Averroes also to be quite good. So if you want to study Aristotle's De Anima, and you really only want to get one or two books, I would say just get these two. Just get Christopher Shields and get Alfred Ivry, and you're good to go, as they say. There is as I was saying about Averroes, he wrote 3 different kinds of commentaries. He wrote very brief ones, the middle ones, I've already shown you the middle commentary, and then he wrote a larger commentary. The larger commentary is very large, but unfortunately it does not survive in Arabic. However, it was translated into Latin, it was translated into Hebrew, and on the basis of that, a modern scholar named Richard C. Taylor has done a lot of work to study these versions and produce an excellent English translation with the title Averroes of Cordoba, Cordoba's long commentary on the De Anima of Aristotle. This also is not. This also is an expensive book. It's not cheap, but it's worth having. And there's an excellent, very long introduction, some 100-page introduction in this about Averroes' understanding, because there is a doctrine in Aristotle known as the doctrine of the active intellect, or the nous poeticos. And what that means is the active intellect, in Arabic, al-aql al-fa'al, and what exactly is to be understood by that, and what the implications of that were argued about by commentators for over the centuries. So Aristotle's De Anima was highly influential. It was, as you can see from Averroes' work, a work that was read in the Muslim world, but it was also read by someone named Ibn Sina long before Ibn Rushd. And then Ibn Sina, or Avicenna, was led to write his own De Anima, or his own book on the soul, which is part of the massive work he wrote in Arabic known as the Kitab al-Shīʿah, or the cure, or the healing, a massive encyclopedic work of philosophy, and his On the Soul, or Fin Nafs, is contained in this. This is the Cairo edition, Iranian reprint of the Cairo edition of the relevant volume of the Kitab al-Shīʿah. There are 2 other editions in Arabic. One is by Fazl Rahman, and actually Fazl Rahman's edition was originally supposed to come out in this publication, but he didn't agree. And then there was the first edition of the work in Arabic to ever come out, came out I think in the 50s in what was then Czechoslovakia, and it's a very hard edition to find. So Avicenna was very interested in this whole problem of the soul. There's a lot of things which are left ambiguous or unresolved in Aristotle's work, and Ibn Sina tries to deal with them. And Ibn Sina's De Anima was also translated into Latin, heavily influenced, along with Averroes or Ibn Rushd commentaries on the De Anima, heavily influenced Aquinas. And there is, in fact, a massive study on this published by the Warburg Institute, or the Warburg Institute, published in 2000 by someone named Dag Nicolaus Hasse. And that's Avicenna's De Anima in the Latin West, the formation of a peripatetic philosophy of the soul, 1160 to 1300. This is also not an easy book to find. I actually bought it directly from the Warburg Institute in London because I like to go there. Okay, so this is an interesting book. Now, if you don't read Arabic and you want to read the De Anima of Ibn Sina, then we are fortunate that in having this work by Tommaso Alpina, Italian guy, an Italian scholar, called Subject, Definition, Activity, Framing Avicenna's Science of the Soul. This is published by De Gruyter. This book was a gift to me by the eminent young scholar Sayyid Hassan Rizvi when I visited him in Canada. And this book has a translation in full into English of Avicenna's De Anima on pages 191 to 238 of this book. So that is my list of recommendations for introducing yourself to Aristotle's book, the De Anima. And if you are interested, I have been running a kind of seminar reading group on the De Anima with some of my students And initially I wasn't sure I was going to upload it, but I think it could be useful to many people. So I will be uploading that in the very soon. I have recorded several of those. There's right now, we had one class today, so there's four. There's four such videos, and there'll probably be maybe 2 or 3 more. And but it is a kind of seminar, so there's a lot of discussion and so forth. But you may find that interesting. So do stay tuned. Be sure to like and subscribe, and thank you very much for watching.